All right. How's it going, David?
What's going on, Hamid?
I'm good. Not
Good, man.
much. All right. So tonight's topic, picked a good one. Um, it's one from me and one from you. So it's gonna be Caltech versus UC Davis. Uh, two schools that we're familiar with, given that we graduated from one of them each.
That's
So
right.
why don't we get started? Can you tell me a little bit about Davis?
Sure. I went to UC Davis. Well, maybe to start off with, the interesting part about all this is that we both ended up at the same company after college, and we eventually ended up at the same company down the line at Google. But yeah, I went to UC Davis, which is not a top tier school by any means. I consider it a pretty middle tier school in that most people have never even heard of it, and it's kind of in the middle of nowhere in California. But it was pretty
Yeah,
much
most of
one of
the
the
UCs are pretty good, though, right?
yeah, they're generally pretty good. But in terms of like my high school, it was like I was basically a failure for going to UC Davis, especially with my parents. I think it's ranked somewhere around 50 in the US. So nothing like Caltech. Why don't you tell us about Caltech?
Um, Caltech, what most people know about Caltech is basically nothing. They what they do know is where it is. Every time people are like, "Oh, where's Caltech?" Uh, first of all, they either don't know about Caltech at all, and they're like, "Is that like Cal Poly?" Which is not. It's like a different school. But Caltech's in Pasadena, and every time people hear that, they're like, "I know where that is. That's where the Rose Bowl is." And I'm like, "Thank you." It's like
Nice.
when people ask me growing up, like, "Where are you from?" And I would say, I was born in Shanghai, and they'd be like, "Oh, I know where Shanghai is." And it's like, "Oh, really? You know where one of like the top 3 biggest cities in the world is? Like, you've heard of it." Like, right? Like,
Yep.
um, so Caltech is actually a really small school. There's only when I went there, like 900 undergraduates and like 1,000 graduate students. Right? So each class was probably like 200 something handful, basically. Um, so it was, it's considered pretty elite, private school, right?
Yeah, it's
So
like
you get
a
the private school tuition.
basically like a
But the
top
real
five school,
goal,
right? Based on
uh,
almost any ranking.
yeah, I mean, we'll say top 10, but like rankings pretty dumb overall. But yeah, it's considered up there. The specialty I would say is that it just really focuses on science, right? The goal of Caltech is to just produce research scientists.
Nice. And what was your major there?
I studied bio. I had two majors. I double majored in biology and business.
Okay,
So
okay.
so
I was
yeah, why don't
basically
you
go ahead.
yeah, well, tell me how you did at Davis, given
Well,
that
I
you
had a
are
major
both
and a
brilliant.
minor. I was a marketing major with a minor in math. And while I was like not the best student in my high school, once I went to Davis, like without changing any of my habits, I was basically like one of the best students at Davis. I was like regularly getting like the highest score on tests, and it all like clicked pretty easily for me. Whereas in high school, I was just used to like being just kind of like an average person. Probably because like I went to a pretty good high school. I was raised in Cupertino, California, which is known to have pretty good schools. So everyone there is like super hardworking. And then when I went to college, I was like, why are people not studying? Like, why are people skipping classes? Why are people not like pulling all nighters, for the final? Like I just couldn't imagine the work ethic. And so like compared to those folks, I was basically top tier, and I pretty much cruised through college with like a 3.9 something GPA. So yeah, that was kind of my experience there.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So I think I pretty much had the exact opposite of that. High school, I was top 10 in my class. So I was used to basically it being like pretty easy. Right? Didn't really like work that hard in high school. It was pretty natural. And I went to I think a pretty decent public school. Um, and then Caltech, I was just like empirically just straight up bottom 50%. Um, I, I mean, I didn't work as hard as other people, which is to say I didn't put in like, 50, 60, 70 hours into studying. I only put probably like 30, 40, maybe like 50 some weeks. And right, like I graduated with like a 3.0, like barely a 3.0 as a GPA. So that was again like bottom 50%. So I know I was bottom 50% there, 100%.
Yeah. 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 And then so from there, what was the job application process like for you? Was it easy? Was it hard? Like,
Um, it was super hard because I told you earlier, right? Like Caltech's a research scientists institution. Like their goal is to produce research scientists, right? So I think one interesting statistic about it is I think like 30, maybe 35% of people graduating from Caltech go on to get a graduate degree,
jeez.
which is like by far the highest of any school. Right? And keep in mind, the sample size is smaller, right? Because it is a smaller school, but it's still like I think every single person that I'm, still friends with from college in my class has like a PhD or at least a master's, if not like two masters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have like no graduate degree. I'm basically the biggest scrub in that class. And it's not just that. Like half those guys are like professors at universities,
Jeez.
right?
And
So that's
we're in our mid 30s. Yeah.
yeah. So no, they got tenure early, right?
Yeah.
Like these guys are the real deal. So when people, in high school, you're talking about like, oh, that guy's like a genius or that guy's a nerd. Like these are the guys you're talking about,
Yikes.
right? Like,
Yeah.
again, like I'm just a scrub, right? So
Mm-hmm.
nowhere close.
But you're at Google now, pretty high level at Google. So to be a
Uh,
scrub with that is quite impressive.
yeah. Now I'm a scrub at Google. So at the end of the day, right, we got to keep in mind like there's a huge gradient, right, of where you
Yeah.
can be, and the simple thing is like at the end of the day, if you're like top, right, like 10%
Mm-hmm.
at Davis, right,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
maybe you're only top 50% somewhere else, right?
Yeah. If I
Because
went to Caltech, I would have been bottom 25 probably.
you might not have graduated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one thing about Caltech is like the 4-year graduation rate is actually only 80%
Mm,
compared to someplace like Harvard, which is like 99, right? Like once you get into Harvard, they like want you to graduate.
interesting.
At Caltech, it's just like, I didn't make it. Like, right? Like
Mhm.
it's just a different goal. At least when I went, right? It's been kind of it's been 10 plus years, so
Yeah. Yeah.
things are a little different now, right?
But
But
pretty much everyone there 10 plus years after graduation is very successful. Like the majority of them.
um actually everyone just works at Google now. Everyone's either a professor or works at Google.
Nice.
So like
I would consider that very
yeah,
successful.
yeah, it's like if that's successful, then
Mhm.
100% yes.
Nice. Nice.
Um
Um,
it's kind of a yeah. Yeah.
anyways, I'd say for me, like most of the people I know who went to Davis right now are mm, not like that. Not all of them are successful. Not even majority. Not, maybe only a handful of people are like decently successful. Meaning like Google or beyond. Um, and and yeah, it goes back to the whole like big fish in a small pond versus like small fish in a big pond type of thing. Like I was probably like a big fish in a relatively weak pond, which is Davis. And so for my job applications, it actually went pretty smoothly for me. I remember applying to like three places, Intel, and all three places basically recruited for my school. Intel, NetApp, and the small place Equilar, which is where we both ended up at. And I ended up getting two of offers at two of those three, and finding internships in my third year were also relatively easy for me. That said, I had a lot of extracurriculars too in college and in high school. I like, started my own business and stuff like that, so that probably counted as well as I'm sure the GPA looked really good because when you're like a new grad, like there's like so few objective measures you have. GPA is like a pretty big one for your
Yeah.
first job.
Yeah, I like in this respect, it was like totally opposite. That's why I kind of went off on a tangent talking about the research aspect. Basically, Caltech, like when I went, there's like no real career support,
Oh
right?
wow,
Like,
yeah,
no, people aren't really recruiting from there. And the
yeah,
people that are recruiting from there, they're just looking for like engineers. Right?
yeah.
And I didn't study engineering, right? So it was just kind of like automatically like nobody's recruiting from business at Caltech, right? Because it's it's like, well, what are you doing? Like, what are you even doing? Like, why do you have like people don't even know there's a business major there, right? So like no one's recruiting. So actually I just when I graduated, I did nothing for like 6 months.
hmm This was
Because
also in 2009, right?
yeah, we also graduated in the middle of the recession. So yeah, that definitely played a part in having like
Yeah.
struggling finding a job. But it took me 6 months and right, like the first job offer I got was actually like some like law firm thing doing like e-discovery. It's probably like basically like data entry for like 28,000 or something.
Oh, you turned that down.
And I was just like, I can't take this.
Yeah, yeah,
It was like because you don't go to like private school that costs like 40, 50K a year to
yeah,
then like get like a 28K job. Like the math just doesn't add up, right?
yeah.
So
Well, the sad thing is we both ended up in kind of a data entry job unrelated to either of our majors in a pretty shit company, for lack of a better word. My starting pay was 45K. I remember seeing that number and being really ashamed of myself, especially based on what like my sister was making and stuff like that. But that was
yeah,
I guess
I
kind of our
started the same
lives.
number. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we were started in like the same position, right? So I was at the exact same number. I remember like seeing it. I felt so bad
Hmm, hmm.
because at the time, you would look at like median salaries of whatever people from school, and it would be like
Yeah.
70, 80, 90K.
Just
And
bringing
then it
back
would
really
just be
painful memories.
like it wasn't even close, right? It
I know.
wasn't like I was like getting a 65K offer and it was like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm below median. But it was just like it was like right, like a standard it was like two standard deviations off. So
Yeah.
it was just like it felt so bad.
It's really bad.
That's something that I'd had to like learn to deal with uh
Mm-hmm.
over time. So going back to the, big fish, small fish thing, what do you feel worked better for you? Because you were like you were kind of the small fish in high school, right? And then you were like big fish at Davis, and that was a little bit reverse. Like what do you feel like?
I feel like for me, it was a good thing for me because it helped build my confidence. Because like in high school, I was average, and then like it was just going upwards, right? In college, I was like, wow, maybe I'm like actually decent at something, and then I kind of was able to take that momentum into the job. Um, if I'm to be perfectly honest, though, like even in high school, though, even when I had pretty bad, even though I was pretty average, I always I always thought there was something special in my heart, would blossom one day.
That's the innate confidence.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't teach that, right? You can't teach that. You gotta have it.
yeah, yeah. But um, I'm trying to think like, was there anything I learned at UC Davis, the culture or the people or anything that really eventually led me to get a job at Google? Like long term success. It's hard for me to say that as well. But I did find a love for marketing. I took some courses there that just really sparked an interest in me. Um, because maybe my grades were pretty good, I was able to take courses that I just wanted to do for fun, like, marketing or astronomy or game theory. And I think those had a really, really big net positive impact on me. How about you? Like, did you feel like Caltech taught you important stuff long term?
No. Um, I think it's actually bigger. I think I agree with you. I think it's better to be a big fish in a small pond for the
Mm,
exact same reason you just said, confidence.
yeah.
So when I went to Caltech and I like got destroyed basically, right? Like bottom 50%, like you're just not used to getting these types of grades.
Yeah.
Um I just lost a bunch of confidence. It took me like 5 years out of college to gain it back.
Shit.
Basically what it took was working in the real world with other people who didn't graduate from Caltech
Yeah. Yeah.
and just being like, okay, well, uh, I can definitely compete with these people,
Me
right?
feeling like a bigger fish.
Yeah, exactly. When you go back to the outside world, but when you're there, like, it destroys your confidence, or at least my confidence, right? Like,
Uh huh.
but I would actually say a lot of people's confidence, because I talked to plenty of right colleagues, colleagues there, right? So I'm gonna go with that, right? It was really bad. Actually, that's what I feel like is the biggest difference between people who go to elite schools
Hmm.
and like middle tier schools in the first place.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
actually just confidence, I
Well,
think.
then here's a tough question then though. Like, if you could go back in time, I'm sure you would have been accepted to UC Davis or another similar school. Like, would you have rather went there and dominated and had better confidence?
Maybe.
Shit.
I'm not
Apart.
gonna say no. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say no. Just based on what I just said, right? Like I think
Yeah. Yeah.
it aligns with whatever theory. Like
Yeah.
so I'll give you the example here, right? Like people going to Stanford, for example, or like Harvard, right?
Yeah.
They just grow up dominating everything they do,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like they're not like used to failure, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like because
Yeah.
all that stuff just comes so easy for them. I think the first time they really get challenged is when they go to college,
Yeah.
right? So um, what happens is that like you have so much confidence going in, like these kids are basically like not used to failing, right? Like
Hmm.
school's easy,
Yeah.
right? Right, like, you're probably, like, really good at, like, whatever sport or extracurricular you're doing, right? So, like, you're like, dominating that, and then you finally hit the big leagues, right? And you need that confidence to continue on, basically.
Yeah.
But I think the difference is Caltech, like, maybe was, like, too hard for me. Like, it's okay to be, like,
Yeah.
hard and challenging, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's, like there's, like, a limit.
Mm.
'Cause if it's, like, too hard and you don't feel like you can succeed even, and you, like,
Hmm.
lose the confidence, then that's when you just, like, damaged you're just, like, damaging.
So it would have been
Um,
better to go to like a Stanford or
I
like
mean,
a
Stanford
Harvard or
was my
something.
dream school, but, like, didn't get in.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
But
I
similar
actually
to your
didn't get
school, but
into, like,
easier.
most of the schools that I
I see.
applied to,
I see. I see.
because, like, I know why. It's because my, like, essay was I was, like, too one-dimensional, like, nerd. I was just like,
Caltech
"I like
likes
science
that.
and math." Yeah, I was like, "I'm an Asian guy, I play, like, a string instrument, and I like science and math." And, like,
Nice.
that's no good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big negative. Don't do that. Yeah.
All right. Well, we both have kids. One day our kids are going to have this dilemma. Let's say they get into Caltech and they also get into UC Davis. Like, I feel like I'm going to tell my kid to go to Caltech because at that point, he or she, they don't know they're going to get dominated. Like, maybe there's a potential they dominate there too. At that point, you don't really know. You just have to go there and kind of try it and like maybe reach a big potential, You got to take that gamble, I feel.
As a parent, yeah,
Apparently.
you would, I mean, that's what my dad literally told me. He was just like, "If you go to Caltech, you might surround yourself with, like, smart people, and then
Mm,
your dumbass might learn something." And I was
yeah, yeah.
like, "Am I?" My dumbass might learn something. And then I went there, I got destroyed. I don't know if I learned that much from the people who were. I just learned like I was a fucking failure.
Yeah, it's
Like
rough.
that's like the only thing I learned was like I think one of my friends from school just said it. One of the things they learned from it is just like a high pain tolerance,
Nice,
which is
nice.
like an interesting thing to learn.
Yeah, I feel like that's important too. But maybe that's a topic for another time.
All right,
Uh, 20 minutes. Let's call it.
all right, it's good chat.
It's been a pleasure, Honwin.
Anyone watching this as a replay, thanks for the
Thanks for
watch.
watching. Peace.
Peace.